Welcome to a very busy week in Missouri politics. We're talking about Governor Parson's second week in office and the end of session with the guy that was at the center of it all, Senator Bill Eigel from St. Charles, or the senator from tax cuts. Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Scott, thanks for having me. Love to be here.
There's a reason we called you the senator from tax cuts. I'll be honest with you. You came on this show a couple times, talked about tax plans. I have to admit, I think the conventional wisdom was it was going to be very hard to pass a tax cut this session. But you came out with a tax cut. Tell us about it.
Well, certainly we're thrilled to be able to lower taxes on Missouri citizens around the state. We did pass House Bill 2540, which was co-sponsored by Elijah Haahr over in the House of Representatives, and that will represent the largest single-year drop in our income tax that the state of Missouri has ever seen. So it's going to drop it by 0.4% from 5.9% down to 5.5%. And really, the impact of that is it moves us closer to the taxation models of states like Texas, Tennessee, and Florida, who don't have income taxes, and because of that, they're growing a lot faster than Missouri is. Folks are leaving the states that have high income taxes, and we want to get away from that. We want the population of Missouri to grow again, and when the population is growing, everything else falls into place. Economic growth, job opportunity. When people want to come to your state, everything else is easy.
It's your part about that, though. We've seen other states. To me, it's always an interesting part of Republican philosophies. There will be some cutting, right? If you cut taxes, you have to cut the budget, correct?
Well, that's the good news is our revenues have been growing so strong that we've actually found a way to cut the rates while at the same time protect ourselves from short-term cuts in our state budget. If you look at some of the models of how not to do tax cuts, you have states like Kansas that had dramatic cuts that really caused an impact to their state budget. We learned from that, and actually about a dozen other states have learned from the state of Kansas since they passed their cuts in 2012. And we've got a much more thoughtful approach to this so that we can reduce the overall burden on folks, but we're not going to cause a huge impact to our state budget.
Let's talk about some other stuff. The end of session, I have to say, probably the most productive session I've ever seen under the Republican Party. The range of things you addressed was enormous. But let's start with some things you worked on, labor reform.
Labor reform, no question. And labor reform, again, that's something that's very important in my state Senate district, that we were very clear about some of our positions on labor reform as we went into my election. We did get public sector union reform done. It'll bring some accountability measures for folks that want to be a part and associated with public unions moving forward. We got some prevailing wage reforms done as well. That's going to be important, particularly for our rural areas, as it'll bring down some of the cost of construction for some of our public projects in those areas. So these are all things that we weren't sure if we were even going to get to this year, and not only did we get to them, we got them passed.
Like most sessions, you went in thinking, well, obviously this will come back next year. It'll be an interesting session next year. You got a ton of things done.
We do, although I think there's always more appetite to continue reducing taxes, and that's something that I'm passionate about. So I think that we made a good first start on reducing the tax burden on Missouri citizens, but I think there's more work to do.
So tell me, there's been a change in the governor's office. It obviously, I think, has been received as very different. From your position as a state senator, what has been your working relationship with Lieutenant Governor Mike Parson, and now, for a couple weeks, Governor Mike Parson?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been very good. And one of the things I always mention throughout, and you know how passionate I am about these tax reform measures, I can tell you I had more good conversations with Lieutenant Governor Parson about the tax cut bills that were making their way through the legislature than I did with Governor Greitens. And I think that really speaks to, first of all, the things that you're going to see in common for what we had before, and that speaks to the fact that Governor Parson is going to be fighting for a lot of the same conservative reforms that we've been fighting for the past year and a half. So I think some of that is not going to change. But then there's the differences. And the differences I think you're going to see is that now we have an individual in the governor's office that's going to be very engaged on a diplomatic basis with those in the legislature. And instead of being a abrasive, divisive presence, I think you're going to have someone who wants to be a partner with his Republican colleagues in the legislature to really move policy forward.
Does it stand to reason that a person that has served in the state Senate would have more respect for it?
Absolutely.
I think that might be true throughout life, right?
It could be. Although, I came into office at the same time as our last governor, and it was pretty clear to me from day one that diplomacy is the way to go. and we've been able to be very successful in certain mechanisms, with tax reform being a great example of moving a conservative agenda. And you got to really avoid the us versus them mentality. And if you get caught in a us versus them mentality, then that causes resentment and that causes division, and it's not helpful to the overall movement of the state. I think Governor Parson is going to be a great champion of working with people to find great compromise on good policy.
Interesting. Have you spoken to him, to the governor, since he won?
I have. And we had a really good conversation. He invited the entire Republican caucus to come visit with him earlier this week before the speech he gave to the Assembly. He had great words about unity and working together, and I think that sets the right tone. That's a tone that probably has been missing for the past year and a half in the governor's office. And I can tell you, in my office and with my colleagues, it's been very well received. I think he's off to a good start.
It's almost interesting. He may have a blueprint for what not to do in Governor Greitens' first session. Second session, he was non-existent, and you guys passed probably the most stuff you ever passed.
Well, again, I was consistent about saying that when it came to tax reform, at least, I felt like the Senate was going to lead on that issue. As it turned out, it was the Senate and the House that were going to lead on that issue, and we got that done. Certainly, I'm interested in following up on additional good legislation next year, and if it has to happen in the same manner, great. But I will certainly look forward to welcoming Governor Parson to that discussion.
Talk a little politics now.
Okay.
There was a special election for the state Senate, Clay County, swing district. Some could even say maybe traditionally was a bit of a Democrat district that Ryan Silvey carried. Lauren Arthur wins by a large margin. Do you know her, and what does this mean for Republicans looking forward to November? Well,
certainly I am a big fan of Kevin Corlew. I think he ran a great race out there. But I think certainly that district, in addition to showing its Democratic leanings, did show that there is some concern with the electorate about some of the scandals that we've seen in the past few months that certainly haven't been healthy for the Republican Party. That being said, I think as we move away from that, there's the old saying that time heals all wounds. And the fact that I believe that it continues to be the Republican Party that has a vision for how to make Missouri a better state moving forward is ultimately going to be the deciding factor in future elections. Now, we have another set of elections coming up in August, and we have another set of elections coming up in November. And that's going to give us time and a little bit of separation from the last regime and folks to get a little used to what diplomacy and working together ought to look like under Governor Parsons. I think that's going to be a powerful message, and I think we're going to be successful moving ahead.
Let me roll through them. Your colleague Paul Whelan, he get reelected in Jefferson County.
I do. I know Paul very well. Nobody knows that district as well as Paul Whelan does. I know that no race is going to be easy, but he not only has the resources to get his message out, I think he has the winning message in the first place.
In many ways, he's maybe the father of the Jefferson County Republican Party.
You bet.
You're going to win. Lincoln Huff going to win that race in Springfield to replace Bob Dixon.
I think so. I've had really good conversations with Lincoln. I think he's a strong candidate down there. Also, he's going to have the resources to get his message out. He's got experience in the legislature, and he's another person that's going to come in and be the diplomat we're looking for.
Maybe the most competitive race, St. Joseph and Platte counties, to replace Senator Rob Schaaf. I don't know how you replace Rob Schaaf, but that race may be the most competitive in November. Do you win?
I think we do win. And again, I'm not just trying to put an optimistic spin on everything. I've gotten to know Harry Roberts down there as a very strong candidate. He's the presiding commissioner. He's already won an election in that Senate district. He's raising the resources he needs. And again, I think that he's a guy that brings a good combination of diplomatic skills and conservative principles to the race. I think he's going to be successful in the primary, and I think he's going to be successful in the general election.
Last question, U.S. Senate race. Who are you supporting and why?
Well, I'll tell you what, first of all, certainly I'm going to support whoever the Republican nominee is, but I can tell you that today I'm going to be touring facilities with Josh Hawley, who's in my Senate district. I'm glad to be hosting him. He and I share a lot in common, and I think that he's got a very compelling message to put forth for why he should be the nominee of the Republican Party. I expect him to be successful in that, and I look forward to supporting him as we go through the general election.
Guy packs a lot of guts in that shirt.
He does.
So interesting. So give me the prediction. Of the three competitive state Senate races, do you win them all?
I think we win them all. I think, and again, certainly I'm Republican, and so I'm a little bit partial to that. But what it comes down to is message. And the message of the Republican Party is one that is going to make Missouri stronger and more competitive economically and fiscally speaking moving forward. And if we want to follow the example of states that have growing populations, which affects every other aspect of our economic lives, then the Republican message that we're putting forward is the path to go. And I think that the power of that message will trump all other considerations.
Senator Bill Eigel, thank you so much. Congratulations on your tax cut.
Thank you for having me. We'll come back soon.
We'll be right back to talk about special elections on the ballot in August with John Gaskin after this.
In my state of Oklahoma, since it's become a right-to-work state, we've lost tens of thousands of jobs, and wages have gone down. I lost my job of 36 years.
Census Bureau and U.S. Department of Labor reports show that in right-to-work states, families make over $8,700 less per year, but CEOs make 361 times the average worker.
Prop A in Missouri is not what they're trying to sell you.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like, and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back this week in Missouri Politics Opinion Maker Panel Time. Mark Dalton with the Carpenters Union. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me on again.
John Gaskin, NAACP National Board Member. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Joe Patterson, St. Louis County Deputies Union, and running for state rep, South County, right?
Yes, that's right. Glad to be back, Scott.
And Republican political consultant and maybe the Oracle of Missouri, Mike Hafner. Welcome to the Opinion Maker Panel.
Great to be here.
Let's start off with the top. Governor Parson, I think, started the week off last Monday. A speech, it was very Mike Parson.
Yeah, well, when you look at the transition, how it's developed, you know, most governors have about 2 months to plan a whole administration. Mike Parson had 72 hours effectively, and you can see with his early staff moves, with the tone he struck, his statewide tour, reaching out across the aisle, that he's done a lot of the moves you would hope in a leader that will truly, I think, move Missouri forward and heal the state's wounds over the last 6 months.
Mark Dalton, you're a guy that knows the rotunda of that Capitol well. But, you know, from my vantage point, I'm not sure there's not like he's pro-choice or anything. Mm-hmm. Public policies stay the same. The tone and the person in the office is radically different.
Yeah, radically different. I think he set the tone in his speech where he made it clear that the office is bigger than the person sitting in it, which is a stark contrast to Governor Greitens that was just there, who obviously held himself in a higher esteem than the office. So it's a dramatic change, a 180, and I think, you know, Parson's going to do a lot of good things for the state. He's common sense and willing to work with everyone.
John Gaskin, you're a leader, especially in St. Louis. Mike Parsons gathered the reputation when he was in the Senate for actually trying to help be an outstate voice to carry things for St. Louis. What does that conversation turn to now?
Sure, it turns to trying to give the state some stability. We had a governor who was in office who just basically caused a great deal of havoc. And honestly, it led a lot of Missourians, both in the city and the county, outstate, to not trust state government and not trust the office of the governor. And so I think he's got a great deal of responsibility to try to bring the state together and rebuild some trust. And, you know, he's been in the Capitol a long time, and he's a consensus builder. So I hope that he's one that both Democrats and Republicans can begin to work with.
That's his question. So sometimes Greitens almost wanted to have conflict with people. I think it was part of his thoughts. And he, to his credit, he ran on, I'm going to have conflict with people. However, to me, they're reasonable people. I consider you one of them. They can sit down with Mike Parson and disagree on 7 of 10 things, but the 3 things you agree on, you think Democrats, and especially Democrats in St. Louis, can say, okay, we disagree on some things, but overlook that and find the common ground.
I absolutely believe that there are some things we can definitely work with the governor on. You know, Governor Greitens came into office with a very bull in a china shop demeanor. He came in with his priorities, didn't want to work with anyone, just took people as prisoners. And so he came in thinking, had people under the impression that he would work with the Black Caucus and work with the NAACP and other African Americans. And within a week or so, he stopped returning African Americans' phone calls. Governor Parson is one who has worked with the African Americans and the Black Caucus before, and I very much so believe that there will be some issues we can work with his administration on to move the needle.
Joe Patterson, another interesting photograph. You've seen Sly James, very popular mayor of Kansas City. You saw Mayor Cruson, Steve Stenger, the mayor of Jefferson City, very popular figure, all in that governor's office meeting. I didn't see that picture previously, probably because they didn't want to have it, right?
Perhaps not. I think the one thing with Governor Parson's administration is that Mike touched on the word leader, being a leader, leadership. Mike Parson's a true leader. Even though he's from rural Missouri, he knows the entire state of Missouri. And a lot of these issues that are affecting, especially in the realm of poverty, they affect rural Missouri just like they affect suburban and urban Missouri too. So he mentioned that in his address. I think you're going to see Governor Parson lead the state. He welcomed vigorous debate. We expect vigorous debate. We're going to fight hard. We're going to stay on the foundations of our principles, and we're going to find some common ground. We're going to hash it out. But at the end of the day, I think that we are going to enter into a new sort of breath of fresh air of we're going to be professionals, and the number one golden rule is we're going to put the people of Missouri first.
I think it'll be interesting, Mike Hafner, as Joe Patterson moves to Jeff City, he'll realize there is no place that's rural Missouri. Rural Missouri. Let's talk about a place that is pretty much in Missouri. That was the Clay County special election. State Senate seat held by Ryan Silvey, very popular, very moderate. The Democrats had a very good night. And to me, you know, you look at labor, you look at the Greiten scandals, you look at a good candidate, Lauren Arthur, because you had a great candidate that fit the district very well in Kevin Corlew. What does that mean going forward to places like Jefferson County, Greene County, and even St. Joseph? I think it gives Republicans cause to worry. You know, I think when you look at this in the broad picture, Eric Greitens, I think, set the Republican Party back years in this state. And if you look at a district like that was held by a Republican, you know, Donald Trump did well there, and then we lose the seat pretty substantially. And as a campaign consultant on the Republican side, I hope that's not a trend. And I think there's a lot of things we need to do in the meantime, though, leading up to November, so that doesn't happen in Jefferson County and some of these other purple districts where Republicans are at a real threat of losing their seats. You know, Joe, there's an interesting thing. You looked at where Greitens led some support in the Republican Party, hardcore folks that are, if you're in R, were for you. You hope those folks turn out in a special election like that. We'll say there was some turnout, but it does appear that Democrats aren't going to have the years they've had the last 4 cycles. I think who turned out the most in that special election was labor. I mean, that's the sleeping giant that's been awoken. You have a lot of labor guys. I'm knocking doors, talking to folks, and they were in love with Aaron Greitens because he was a Navy SEAL, and they didn't realize that he was going to jump into their paychecks and try to slash our union dues right off the get-go. So I think labor's awake, labor's motivated, and they're organized. It's probably the worst year to ever run for politics. It's probably certainly one of the worst years to run as a Republican. So are guys like me young, new at this? Are we scared? No, we're just going to work that much harder and rally our votes. Interesting thing. I mean, give some credit to Lauren Arthur. Kevin Corlew is an outstanding person and leader. Lauren Arthur's a great candidate. Is it a great candidate, or is there a wave? And I guess maybe the question is, I think there's some folks skeptical of a blue wave, but there could be a McCaskill wave and there could be a labor wave. Is that possible? I think it's a combination of all three. UAW, the Carpenters, and so many others got up there and they worked their tails off, knocking on doors and doing real old-fashioned grassroots organizing. And that's how you win elections. Lauren Arthur's a great candidate. Senator McCaskill, Stephen Weber, and his shop there at the Democratic Party did what they had to do, and people got out and made it happen. What do you think? I mean, one, quality person, quality candidate, Lauren Arthur. Yes. Number two, I think the national, when you have the presidency, it's like the dog that catches the car. When your party has the presidency, a little harder row to hoe in state elections. Or is it? I mean, I don't think when I stopped by both parties that night, I don't think you couldn't say that Labor and the Republicans, although Kevin Corlew did not vote for those things, many of them, that was a part of it, was Labor. Yeah, Labor was definitely a part. I know we were, you know, Kevin Corlew had been good to, you know, Labor on many things, but some things, you know, not so much, and that's why there was some Labor that were behind Lauren. But I think it's a combination of many things. I mean, a blue wave. I think you've got somebody in the ocean who's pushing that wave and starting. You got Stephen Weber heading the party. You got Claire McCaskill, seasoned veteran, and I mean they just have a field program that's outstanding. In the last couple days, I mean they were knocking 50-some thousand doors over the campaign, and I think the ground game and the field game made the difference there. Claire McCaskill, when she's on the ballot, the Democrats have good years. She's just good, right? I mean, if you're a Republican and you appreciate politics, whatever your thought is, you tip your hat, right?
Sure. Well, I think Claire McCaskill had a tough week, though.
Yeah.
Certainly, and it kind of depends moving forward what kind of campaign Hawley's going to put together and or has right now. And I think he's got a great campaign team, and they're going to make the right strategic moves heading forward, and they're going to have the money to be competitive. And so I wouldn't count Josh Hawley out. Now, Claire McCaskill's a very savvy politician, but you've seen this past week a lot of national exposure has been on her issue with her campaign RV while she's been using her private plane instead of the RV. It completely misrepresented herself to Missourians, and I think Josh Hawley's going to draw those contrasts moving forward and be successful in November.
John Gaskin, you look though, I mean, Claire McCaskill has done a good job. I went to a couple of those town halls just to see what it was about. To her credit, takes all the questions, answers them pretty candidly. Even ones that she wouldn't like. Not everybody there was a Claire McCaskill report, I can tell you from the questions that she read. But you got to say, she has the kind of the reputation of I'm tough, I'm the maverick, I can go against. Josh Hawley has proven over the last 6 months he's a pretty tough customer himself. He is. Once he finds his way to the restroom and learns how to do his job, he'll be ready to go to D.C. Claire McCaskill is a great prosecutor. She's a great senator. And the reason Missourians seem to adapt to her so well is because she has the statesmanship to be able to sit down in a room with people that agree and disagree with her and hear their concerns, have that level of respect. And that's what people miss in American politics, some real statesmanship and some real class. I think Claire McCaskill earned that reputation. I appreciate, respect the town halls, but I will say that I'm not sure anybody in the history of Missouri was tried by fire faster than Josh Hawley, and the guy has some ice water in his veins and some steel in his spine.
Yeah, but I think you'll find the same thing with Claire McCaskill. I mean, the same people, when we're sitting here today saying that, you know, Parson is going to be a good governor because he's willing to sit down with both sides and find common ground, Claire McCaskill has done that year after year after year. And I know she's taken some heat over the travel thing, but I mean, if she's self-funding her own trip to go see some veterans, I mean, I think that's a mistake to attack her over that.
There's going to be attacks in campaigns. Yeah. Claire McCaskill not only says she's independent, she ran against the sitting governor of her own party and beat him in a primary.
Yeah, and
Josh Hawley, people say he could say he's independent. He's actually referred criminal charges on a governor of his own party. My point is, McCaskill has a brand of independence, but Hawley pretty much does too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a dogfight all the way through November, and that's, you know, if Hawley makes it through the primary.
You're on the ground. To me, Josh Hawley led the ticket in 2016. A little advantage because you have to be an attorney to file for Attorney General, but still yet led the ticket. The guy has guts. I think the reason I think people respect Claire McCaskill, regardless of their philosophies, she works hard. Is the person that knows her issues, but also she's independent and tough. Josh Hawley has a claim to that as well, right?
He does, and Josh has another thing too. He's very naturally talented. He's a very skilled orator. He's extraordinarily well-polished scholar. I mean, he's got all the pedigree that you would want. And if he's willing to go and match Claire for muscle to muscle and the hard work aspect, I think it's going to be a really tough race.
Do they do a real debate? These are two smart people that can debate.
Yes, they should. Look, Josh,
you think they will, though?
That's another question for those two to figure out. But
what do you
think they should.
A real debate between the two of them. I mean, these are two of the smartest people to run for U.S. Senate in a long time.
That's great for Missouri, but I think what Missouri wants more importantly is we want people that work hard. And I think that Missouri wants to know their candidates. That's why I'm out knocking doors. I think that's the advice that everybody tells you. We want to know where they come from and who they are. I'd love to see them at a podium together.
What do you think? I mean, I think that you have two very intelligent people who are very well spoken. I'm not sure you've had a combination of intelligent and well-spoken on both parties' candidates in a long time. Absolutely. Claire McCaskill's a former prosecutor. I definitely think she'd do a great job in a debate. They should debate, allow the people of Missouri to hear both sides and both perspectives on the spot. And sure, I look forward to seeing a good debate between those two. Let's talk about ballot issues. So right to work probably helped Josh Hawley being moved to August. It looks to me like if you had to pick a side right now, you'd probably want to be on the labor side of the right to work fight that's going to be decided in August. Yeah, you know what? Some recent polling came out, which everyone knows about, is how terrible right to work is for African Americans in an already disadvantaged community economically. Anyone in the black community that's supporting right to work is someone who's misguided,
and is chasing after money that someone in a different community is offering them to turn against their people. And
what are you talking about? Lay it on the line.
Well, I'm not going to go into any names of any particular people that are former electeds or individuals who have been voted out of office. But the bottom line is this: it's time for African Americans, people of color, working families to stand together, because right now it's on the line and we can't afford to turn the clock back.
Dalton, I always looked at this debate of, if you know what right to work is, you're probably 90-10 against it.
Yes.
Most people in outstate Missouri don't know what a right to work is.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, when the opposition is going to say it's going to bring jobs to Missouri, it's going to create jobs, and you know, people are concerned about creating jobs. The people that really know about it know that there's nothing that's been proven to create jobs. You look at the states around us, every state that surrounds us, there's only one state that the average annual income is higher than Missouri, and that's Illinois, and they're not right to work. So you see states that the income is less, it just drives down rights for workers, securities, you know, safety on the job sites. It's not what they're selling it as.
I always think it's an interesting thing to, when you get in a tough spot, you ask the operative, okay, you're a seasoned veteran, been a part of many campaigns. I would say right now, if you're the pro right to work side, you have to get creative. What advice would you give them?
Well, look, there's no doubt there was a set of strategic errors on the Republican side in passing this so early in Eric Greitens' term, and now we're playing catch up, because for the last 6 months you've had the governor and other people focus elsewhere on preserving the office of governor for him, and so we're playing catch up, and we're going to be playing catch up through the summer. Labor's energized, they're well funded. With that said, voters did have a say on this in 2016 in the election. Millions of dollars came in pro-labor for Chris Koster, millions for pro-right to work for Eric Greitens, and voters still selected Eric Greitens. However, right to work is a competitive issue. We need it for jobs in this state, and so I think we're going to be competitive, but there's no question that we've got a little bit of catch-up playing on our side to defend.
It'd be interesting to see that whiteboard in that room to try to figure a strategy forward. What do you think? Give me the prediction. Does right to work pass in August?
You know, I have not seen one vote yes on Prop A sign in my neighborhood. I live in a very conservative district.
Do they exist?
Do they exist? I don't know. And it's tough for a guy like me who runs a labor organization that we do not collect fair share dues because we have volunteer membership. So
prediction?
It's hard.
Pass or fail?
I'm 50-50 right now.
Prediction?
It's too early to tell.
It's going to fail.
Steiner Knowledge tells me you're predicting it fails?
Down in flames.
With a minute left, who won the week?
I think Steve Stenger won the week. I think a lot of polling has come out, show him in the lead by far. Ban the box for the county, some things a lot of folks have been wanting. So I think a lot of momentum.
Who won the week?
Gary Jones, the new international president for the UAW, the first international president from Missouri, and hopefully he can bring another automobile plant to the great state of Missouri.
Be great. Who won the week?
No doubt Governor Mike Parson gave one of the best speeches I've ever heard for a brand new governor. I had the pleasure of being there in the gallery to actually hear it. He said all the right things, inspired all the right people, and he reminded us again that the people of Missouri must come first.
Who won the week?
I think the new governor's staff, people like Robert Nodell, Aaron Willard, people of true character and great judgment. And quite frankly, if the previous administration had involved people like that on their team, we wouldn't be in the mess.
Different.
I don't think we'd be in the mess we are today.
I'm going to say Austin, everybody at the St. Louis Regional Chamber put on a great softball game Thursday night, Missouri versus Illinois. I hope they do that every year. And we will see you next week, where I will be on vacation. You'll get Rachel Lucky this week in Missouri Politics.
Brought to you by Spire, the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts, and Sterling Bank.